We're going to take the next half hour or so to spend some time and hear from Gabe Messler at VIKOR about the journey they've taken. So we'll record it. We're going to leave some time for questions at the end. So if you do have questions, please use the Q&A panel. We will leave some time to cover some ground there when we finish up today. And let's get things started. So just a couple of introductions. My name's Trent Beatty. I lead our partnership and alliance function here at Appficiency. I spent much of my career in the NetSuite ecosystem, about 11 years at NetSuite, a few years at a couple of smaller software companies, and now today here at Appficiency. I also get to have a little bit of fun doing things like this, working with some of our clients and sharing stories. So with that, I want to also allow Gabe to introduce himself as we get things kicked off here. So Gabe, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Trent. So yeah, my name's Gabe Messler. I'm the Director of Business Intelligence and Analytics over here at VIKOR. Been with the company for about 5 years now, but spent probably the last 10 years working in various different field services industries. Excited to be with y'all.
Awesome. I think we'll probably all get this feeling as we go through today, but I personally don't think Gabe's title tells the story at all. So we're going to get a sense of what he's been involved in at VIKOR. But just before we get started, we're going to spend just a couple of minutes as we kick off to let you know who we are at Appficiency. So for those who aren't familiar, who VIKOR is, as well as take you through VIKOR's journey and leave some time for some Q&A, as I mentioned. So again, for those who aren't familiar, Appficiency has been around since 2014. Was actually founded by former NetSuite team members, really experts in the application. We focus on helping organizations get the most out of their NetSuite implementations. We work on initial implementations and also projects that take clients to the next phase and beyond on that application. We work really across a number of different verticals. Really, if NetSuite fits, we are there to support it. And often in cases where NetSuite isn't a perfect fit, we can help make that happen. And one of those industries that we focus on really heavily is construction. We've been lucky enough to receive the recognition from NetSuite with our work in the construction industry, among others. So we're pretty happy to be able to share some of those stories with you. And have folks like VIKOR join us. So just a little bit of a story about who we are. Gabe, maybe I ask you as well to just let the folks know a bit more about VIKOR.
Yeah, so VIKOR founded in 1989. Our founder likes to remind everybody that it was 3 guys in a truck back in 1989. So the company is a construction company that focuses mainly on communication infrastructure. Do work with wireless carriers, renewable energy providers, public utilities, and various other industries. We're headquartered out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but we've got offices across the Mid and Mountain West, and we're even starting to get into the southern area of the United States. Do work nationwide, and even some international work. We've got 230 employees. Last 4 years, we've been on a pretty steep growth trajectory. Our CEO likes to call us a 30-year overnight success. So we've been steadily growing for 30 years, but on a little bit steeper trajectory here in the last few years. That's a little bit about VIKOR.
Awesome. I think we're going to learn a lot more as we go through today. And for those of you who are noticing my complexion changing, the sun has just miraculously come out for the first time in days in my town. So I'm going to fight through the glare. But I also wanted to call out, we're being joined and supported today by our partner, Oracle NetSuite. And for those of you who aren't familiar with NetSuite, NetSuite was really the first cloud ERP company founded over 20 years ago. Today, they've got 33 plus customers around the world and those clients operating in more than 215 countries. So the application is really, again, serves many different industries, but we're going to focus on a story really relevant to the construction oriented part of the application's support today. And with that, let's get started. Let's jump in. We've got a lot of ground to cover in the next 25 minutes or so. So just want to make sure we can get into the story. So Gabe, I'm going to try to not pepper you, but give you some questions to help take us through the journey that VIKOR has gone on. And the first question I have for you really, and I asked this of a lot of people, but why a new ERP? What was it about the organization that kind of led you to be looking at a new ERP? Some of the business drivers that you might have been thinking about.
Yeah, that's a great question, Trent. So for us, it was really to tackle the challenges of growth. We were this 30-year overnight success, but as we started to see these steep growth trajectories, it came new challenges that we hadn't experienced in the past. So we really needed to be able to tackle those challenges and be able to do it efficiently through automation. We needed to improve our reporting structure and really allow us to scale those operations efficiently and using technology to help us do that. Obviously, when we're looking at this, probably our biggest system is the ERP system. That's where most of our data is harvested. That's where most of the decisions are made out of. So we need a really great ERP system to help us efficiently grow. When looking at those ERP systems, obviously, we're looking at price. So price is always a factor when you're making any decision. But the bigger factors were, how scalable is this? When we were looking at a transition into a new ERP, we were hovering between 100 and 150 employees, but we knew we needed a system that's going to last for years to come. So how's this going to work when we're 150 employees, 250 employees, 500 employees, 1,000, 1,500? We really need something that can scale with us. We also needed something that could integrate with the various other systems that were collecting data. We're a field services company, so we've got crews all over the place using various different systems to collect data for decision makers. And we needed a cloud-based software that could integrate with all those systems. And obviously, probably the biggest thing is it needed to be able to handle our reporting needs. We're a construction company, so job costing, really important to us. The ability to efficiently recognize revenue, be able to look at our different segments and how things are doing from a profitability aspect. All of those are key drivers to us in that ERP selection process.
Yeah, that's obviously we've had these slides before your answer, but just kind of called out some bullets there that we hear is pretty common, quote unquote, must-haves, right? And I think your description of them in terms of how they apply to the business and where you guys saw the business going is really interesting, right? They're not just there because they're terms everybody throws around. There's reasons that organizations look for scalability, integration, or interoperability in the reporting and analytics. So that makes a lot of sense. And I think you just touched on or mentioned the selection process. So that's really my next question for you is, what were some of the steps that you took or the organization took as you kind of went through that process before you got into the selection, just the process that you guys went through?
Yeah, so it was quite a long process. So initially when we were looking at a new ERP system was a few years ago, and we brought in a consultant team to help us make that decision. Ultimately, they helped us narrow it down to two different systems. At that time, it was NetSuite and another system that I'll leave unnamed. Initially, we decided to go with the other system. Probably the biggest factor in making that decision was we were looking at a price tag, and we said, well, this system looks like it can meet all our needs, and it's at a slightly lower price, so let's go with that. Now, I don't want to discount price because price matters in any decision we make, but 18 months later and a failed implementation later, and we regretted that decision real fast. Ultimately, we found that it's not just about the software, although the software is really important. Part of it was the partner that we selected didn't have a good grasp of the construction industry. The consulting team that we helped us make that decision didn't have a good grasp of the construction industry. And we made a decision that ended up in us having to start fresh. And it really helped us understand. We learned a lot of things in that process. I like to think of it as it was a real expensive education for me and my team. But we took a lot of those things and applied it to the second step when we started fresh and went through the process again.
Yeah, that's you'd shared a little bit about that with us in kind of our prep, but you mentioned the lessons, and then you and I were just chatting before we opened it up here and talking about, your organization's position and, being able to help and add value to the whole industry. So, we appreciate you sharing some of those lessons. Maybe the expensive education can help pay off for others here today. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and probably the biggest lesson was price is not the only thing, because that's a short-term look at it, but I think we'll get into that.
Yeah, and I think you kind of started to touch on this. The next question I had for you was, so the previous question was just more about the process and steps and things that you went through. But, if I can ask some pointed question here about what were some of the things that led you to NetSuite and Appficiency? What were the things that kind of stood out there?
Yeah, so we took those lessons learned, those expensive lessons learned from an 18-month failed implementation, and kind of started from scratch. Decided we're going to go out and we're not just going to take a consultant's word for it. We're going to go out and look for what's the best system for us. We focused on systems that had a very heavy construction base to it, and always had NetSuite in the back of our minds because that was the one we didn't choose the first time around. Eventually, we got connected with Oracle, and they connected us with the Appficiency team. And in our initial meetings with Appficiency and Oracle, it was clear they had the construction background that we were looking for. They had the tools that were really built for the construction industry, the job costing side of things, that were going to make a implementation successful. Ultimately, we narrowed it down to NetSuite and another solution again. But this time we said, we're not going to make the same mistake twice. We're choosing NetSuite and Appficiency this time around. Ultimately, it was an easy decision to make. The Appficiency team really spoke our language. It was clear that they understood the needs of contractors, and we felt like it was an easy decision to make the second time around. Yeah. So yeah, we weren't going to make that mistake twice. I can tell you that. And we didn't. Seeing 18 months later from an implementation, we didn't make that mistake twice.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad we were able to come back and be there for you the second time around. We hear that quite a bit, and we take it to heart. The experience and industry knowledge is quite honestly the differentiator, right? A lot of technology out there today can work, but you've got to have people that know how to apply it on both sides of the team, right? Both on your side as well as the implementation side. So, we've gone to the market and built our team with industry expertise to be able to help our clients take advantage of the tools that we've all got available. So I appreciate that feedback. The next piece of it is, this might be the most involved question, even though it's maybe the shortest sentence. How did the implementation go? What did it feel like? And I think that's probably what many people are here to hear from you about. How did the experience feel and what happened?
Well, I've been through a ton of implementations in my career, and I can't think of one that went better than implementing NetSuite with Appficiency. Obviously, implementations are hard. No, there are bumps in the road. There are things that come up. You don't gather all the information you need. Maybe you add things to the scope. But all things considered, the implementation was tremendous. The experience was tremendous. And what it comes down to is on time and on budget, which can be a rarity when you're thinking about implementing new software systems. When those bumps came, the Appficiency team did a great job of managing change, keeping things moving forward, even when there was things that, hey, we need it to do this, we need it to do that. They had a great process of managing those changes. The project management team, the engineering team on the Appficiency side really just helped us keep moving this process forward. We deliberately built in 6 months into the implementation, even though we were assured we can get it done faster. Part of the reason was we had just gone through a failed implementation that didn't go on time or under budget. So we wanted to give ourselves plenty of time. We also wanted to target a January go live just to make that transition a little bit easier on the accounting side. But we were ready to go live in November if we needed to. We built in that time, but the Appficiency team really helped it keep moving along, stay on time, on budget, and we were ahead of schedule the entire time. Ultimately, is really awesome experience. Really impressed with the technical team on the Appficiency side. Sometimes you work with, I've experienced working with programmers, and they speak the technical language, but not always the realistic language that our operators and our accountants are using. They did an excellent job of translating and helping us understand how things were set up, how the database was being built, so that they can hand this off and we know what to do with the tool. We know how the tool works. We know how it's designed, and it works for us. So really awesome experience.
I didn't tee this up at all, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. I'm curious if there's something that stands out to you that was, the biggest challenge. Like, was there one thing throughout the implementation that was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome, whether that was the technology or was it, just general change management organizationally? I'm curious how you felt about that.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge with any project like this is change management. Oftentimes things get communicated in the front end in the scoping process, where you're using a specific set of language and terms that mean one thing to you, but may mean something else to another team. So managing, hey, this was our understanding of these types of systems and processes. Here's what you're understanding, and how do we get it linked up as we're getting to the testing and training phase to make sure the end results are what we want and we're getting the product that we were hoping to get. Those things are hard, but Appficiency just did a great job of managing those change and keeping things under budget. Oftentimes when those things come up in projects, it means change orders and added time and added scoping. That wasn't an issue with our process. Obviously, there is scope changes and legitimate change orders that happen with any type of implementation project, but they did a great job of keeping things moving, keeping it on time, not letting these change the end results of what we were targeting.
Awesome. This is feeling a bit like more of a sales pitch for Appficiency than I had expected, but I appreciate how this is coming out. That said, it would kind of keep us moving forward, and we talked about kind of high level process you went through. NetSuite, the platform, is where you guys landed, but can you share, Gabe, some of the maybe more detailed info around what are the key elements of the platform or the solution that VIKOR is using today?
Yeah, so really to start, we're using the core functionality of NetSuite, the financials, the general ledger reporting. Some of the add-ons we're using the fixed asset module because we have a ton of trucks and equipment out there that we're having to manage depreciation schedules. So we are using the NetSuite depreciation and fixed asset module in order to efficiently get the books closed at the end of each month. We're also using material job costing, which is an add-on that Appficiency has built. It's helping with our job costing, revenue recognition processes, and really seeing targeted profitability metrics, seeing how our projects are doing. We're not using any of it for field services. It's really just our accounting, financial, and ops leadership team that are in the system right now. We're always looking at expanding, but we've got NetSuite integrated with those systems that we are using. So we're eliminating some of the double entry that we had with old systems, and all those things are flowing really well, keeping ops leaders informed as well as getting us good information on the accounting side. So really just the core functionality at this point with the addition of MJC and fixed asset modules.
Yeah, that's good. I think, just for some of the folks on the call who don't necessarily know the pieces and the bits and pieces that make up NetSuite and the different modules. I think this may be helpful. It might also create more questions, but just to give a sense of, it's not necessarily everybody's using the entire platform. There's a lot of benefit that comes out of even just the core basics, the wrong term, but the core fundamental features of the system, and then being able to kind of grow from there when it makes sense. So you started to touch on in that overview some of the key benefits your team's seeing, like just closing the books more efficiently, getting visibility into the reporting more effectively. Can you share a bit more around some of the things that your team has seen so far?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing is efficiency. So efficiency in the actual processing of getting the books done, shortening that time to close the books. Obviously, there's some hiccups when you first change order to a system, so you don't see those efficiencies immediately, but we were seeing efficiencies immediately in certain areas, but the efficiencies really came right away in the ability of access to information for our decision makers, giving them visibility into real-time reporting on projects and how our segments are producing profitability, that's just helping with growth. It's helping us with targeted growth. I think since making this decision, we've grown about 40%, and that wouldn't be possible without good information to help us make wise decisions on where we're targeting growth. It's critical. If you don't have good information, your growth's not going to be pointed, and you're going to make a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad investments. But with this tool, it's allowed us to make really real-time decisions and stay out in front of the different avenues that we're taking on to grow the company.
Yeah, that's a great segue into the last question. We're kind of wrapping up or getting close to the time we need to start wrapping up, but as we make our way into this last question, so what comes next? Where does VIKOR go from here? Anything you can share outside of the walls of VIKOR with us?
Yeah, so as far as on the accounting ERP side of things, we don't have any active projects going on with Appficiency. We do have Appficiency on board for ongoing support. We like to think that we now have phase 1 complete, and now we're on to phase 2. Phase 2 is likely going to include expanding on our segmentation. We want to continue to improve our month-end processes so that we can streamline certain things that are still a bit manual that we know NetSuite can help us streamline, but we've just been focused on some of the core functions here in the first year and in phase 1, things like account allocations, different reconciliation processes that we want to improve, and just continue growth, continue expansion as a company. Want to keep using the insights we're getting out of our ERP system to focus on targeted growth, and just onward and upward, continue to grow the company, elevate the industry, elevate all the individuals here at VIKOR.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Again, back to the conversation you and I were having before we opened it up, the elevate the industry. I think that's fantastic that VIKOR has that mantra, and I think today's been a good example of that. You come in to just share your story. There's obviously no real direct benefit to VIKOR to doing this, so we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. We do have a couple of minutes left, and I mentioned that we would leave some time for some questions, so I'm going to just take a look at our Q&A chat here, and we do have one question. Goes back, came in a while ago, but a question from Alan. What were some of the hiccups in the first installation that NetSuite resolved? And I think you touched on a little bit of this, but maybe there's some specifics you can add in.
Yeah, well, I would say that the biggest hiccups were the first system we selected just didn't handle our industry well. Things like job costing, revenue recognition. The system and the team that we had brought on just didn't know those processes and weren't getting things set up so that we could create any efficiencies and get the information we need out of the system. Appficiency and NetSuite really cleared that up. With the MJC product, we were able to get this real-time job costing, real-time revenue recognition kind of in place, that having a good partner, having a good partner and a good system to meet our needs just ultimately alleviated those concerns. of the first implementation. But yeah, job costing revenue recognition was the biggest thing that NetSuite had over the other systems we looked at.
Great. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. And I think Gabe and I both have a couple of minutes if anybody has questions beyond the next one or two that we have here. But there's one other question I want to ask, because I'm curious how you answer this, Gabe. The question comes in, and it's, how much time did you spend working on the project, and how did you do your day job too? I've heard that question from a few people, knowing that this is not part of your day-to-day job. I'm curious how that felt for you guys.
Well, I won't lie, I was pretty actively involved in the implementation. So this was something where I was dedicating time daily. We were having weekly check-ins with the Appficiency team, but having a good partner makes it so that you can still do your day job and not have to devote all of your time. I mean, it's a time-consuming process to implement a new ERP system. So I won't lie, I was spending several hours a week dedicated to this project, but not enough where it was inhibiting me from being able to do the day-to-day things that didn't stop coming when you're implementing a new system. It puts a stress on your team and yourself when you're implementing a system, but having a good partner alleviates a lot of that stress, and makes the process go a lot smoother and doesn't delay it.
Awesome. Well, folks, we've already gone over the time we asked everyone for, so I want to be respectful of that time. As we mentioned, we will share a recording of today's session. We'll also follow up directly with some of the questions that have been asked that we didn't have time to answer here today. And I think most importantly, share this slide with our contact info as questions percolate for you all, which for me, they always come up after. As questions percolate, please just reach out, let us know. We're happy to help here at Appficiency, and we know how to get in touch with Gabe if there's questions that are maybe more directed toward him as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, for taking the time out today. Whether you joined us live or you're listening to our recording, we appreciate you taking the time to hear the story, and hopefully you got some lessons from Gabe's expensive education in his first time around. Thanks, Gabe, and thanks everyone for today.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Trent.